I'd barely set my mug of coffee on the marble counter when the doorbell's sharp chime cut through the quiet. Morning light spilled across the hardwood floor, warm and honeyed, but my chest tightened as if someone had drawn a string around my ribs. Through the beveled glass of the front door, I caught a glimpse of my parents. My father's jaw was set in that familiar line of determination, and my mother clutched her purse like a lifeline. I opened the door, the cool brass handle firm against my palm, and the scent of rain-damp pavement drifted in. "Rachel," my mother began without even a hello. Her voice wavered, but her eyes didn't. "We need to talk. About the house." My father stepped forward, his gray brows knitting. "Your sister is homeless after her divorce. We need you to hand over the keys. Just until she gets back on her feet." The keys. My house. The words struck like pebbles against glass. I glanced past them to the manicured lawn, the hydrangeas I'd planted with my own blistered hands, the porch swing I'd assembled late one summer night. My stomach nodded. "Hand over the keys?" I repeated, my voice calm though my pulse thudded. I curled my fingers tighter around the ceramic mug, its heat grounding me. They waited, expectant, as if my answer should be obvious. But the memories of years ago, the nights I'd left behind, rose like a storm cloud. The sound of my father's request still echoed in my ears as memory pulled me backward, to a night when the air smelled of cut grass and endings. I was 22, a college senior, standing in the narrow hallway of our old split-level house in Dayton, Ohio. The wallpaper, tiny faded roses, peeled at the corners like it couldn't bear to hold on. My suitcase leaned against the wall, half-zipped. "Rachel, don't be dramatic," my mother said, arms crossed, her gold bracelet glinting under the dim ceiling light. "Your sister needs that internship. She's the one who can really make something of it." "She's already had every break," I shot back, my voice cracking. "I applied months ago. I earned this." My father's newspaper snapped shut. "Don't start. Claire's had a rough year. You'll understand when you're older." Rough year. That was always the reason. Claire's disappointments became my sacrifices. It was a family equation I had learned by heart. I gripped the strap of my duffel until my knuckles whitened. The sting of being invisible pressed like pins against my skin. Grandma Eloise shuffled into the hallway, her silver hair a soft halo in the light. She held out a small leather-bound journal. The cover smelled faintly of cedar. "This helped me when I left home," she whispered, ignoring my parents' tight faces. "Write your own story, Rachel. Don't let anyone else write it for you." Her thin fingers squeezed mine. In her gaze, I saw a kind of quiet defiance that steadied me. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Thank you," I managed, tucking the journal into my bag as though it were armor. My mother sighed. "If you leave now, don't expect us to pick up the pieces when it falls apart." Her words landed like stones, but something in me straightened. "I'm not asking you to," I said, and swung the door open. The night air was cool and damp, laced with the scent of lilacs. My heart pounded, each step down the porch like a declaration. Behind me, the screen door creaked and clicked shut. I didn't look back. The journal pressed against my side, light but unyielding, a promise that whatever came next would be mine to build. The years after I left felt like walking a tightrope over a canyon, terrifying and strangely exhilarating. I moved to Cincinnati with 2 suitcases, Grandma Eloise's journal, and a checking account that barely covered the deposit for a tiny studio apartment. The carpet smelled faintly of old coffee, and the pipes rattled like nervous teeth when the heat came on. Still, it was mine. By day, I worked the front desk at a boutique marketing firm, answering phones and scheduling meetings. By night, I devoured every book on digital strategy and design I could find, scribbling notes in that same leather journal until my fingers ached. I scrawled quotes from Grandma's favorite poets between bullet points, tiny sparks of courage when the doubts whispered too loudly. There were nights when loneliness settled like frost on my shoulders. The city lights beyond my window twinkled, as if mocking my exhaustion. I'd brew cheap coffee at midnight, the bitter steam rising as I pushed through another online course, whispering to myself that someday this grind would matter. 6 months in, a senior account manager named Jordan noticed the social media mock-ups I'd created for practice. He leaned against my desk, a crooked grin lifting his face. "You did these?" My cheeks flushed. "Just for fun." "They're better than half the pitches we've paid for," he said. "You ever think about applying for a junior strategist role?" That moment felt like a door swinging wide. I applied, heart hammering, and landed the position. My salary doubled overnight, though I told my parents only that work was going fine. From there, each year layered on another small victory. Late nights refining campaigns that went viral, client presentations where my voice no longer trembled, the first time a Fortune 500 company signed under my name. I began to save, frugally at first, then with intention. I still called home every few weeks. Our conversations stayed polite. Weather, holiday plans, Claire's latest drama, but I offered only vague updates about my career. They assumed I was scraping by. I let them. At 27, I bought my first house, a Craftsman with white trim and a wraparound porch, nestled on a quiet tree-lined street. The morning I signed the papers, the pen felt heavy, like it contained every sleepless night and silent tear I'd shed to get here. Grandma Eloise came to see it the next weekend. She ran her fingers along the porch rail, eyes crinkling with pride. "You wrote your story, Rachel," she said softly. I pressed the journal into her hands for a moment, letting her see the pages now crowded with plans and dreams realized. "And it's still being written," I whispered. We stood there in the gentle summer breeze, two women bound by quiet rebellion. For the first time, the world felt wide open and completely mine. The present snapped back into focus with the sound of my father clearing his throat. His eyes roamed the open concept living room behind me. Vaulted ceilings, the soft glow of pendant lights, the clean lines of modern furniture. A faint trace of lavender from the candle on the mantel drifted into the air. My mother's gaze lingered on the framed artwork above the fireplace, a watercolor of wild hydrangeas that mirrored the bushes outside. She blinked twice, as if the elegance might vanish if she looked away too long. "Rachel," she said again, her voice softer now. "Your sister, she has nowhere else to go. After the divorce, well, it's been hard. We thought you could lend her the house for a while." I stepped aside and gestured toward the sofa, my heartbeat steady, almost serene. "Come in." They hesitated before crossing the threshold, their shoes clicking lightly against the polished hardwood. My mother set her purse on the marble coffee table, her fingers brushing the smooth surface like she needed proof it was real. Claire trailed behind them, eyes rimmed red but not from tears, more from the quiet anger I knew too well. She looked around, lips tightening. "You really live like this?" she said, her voice almost accusatory. "I do," I replied, letting the words settle. My father cleared his throat again. "It's impressive. We didn't realize you'd done so well." "I know," I said, folding my arms. "You never ask." Silence stretched, broken only by the low hum of the refrigerator and the distant ticking of the wall clock. I walked to the built-in shelves where Grandma Eloise's journal rested. Its worn leather cover gleamed softly under the afternoon light. I held it up, the faint scent of cedar still clinging to it. "This," I said, "is where it started. The night I left home, Grandma gave me this journal. I wrote my plans here, every late-night idea, every strategy that built the career you never thought to ask about." Claire shifted uncomfortably, her designer bag sliding from her shoulder. I opened a page filled with my earliest scribbles, cramped, hopeful handwriting. "I built this house. Paid for it. Every inch of it is mine. No loans. No help. Just me." My mother's lips parted, words failing her. My father stared at the hardwood, the muscles in his jaw tightening. "I'm not heartless," I continued, my voice firm but even. "I know Claire's hurting, but you came here assuming I'd simply hand over the keys, as if all of this were somehow still yours to claim. It isn't." Claire flinched, then whispered, "I just need somewhere to breathe." I met her eyes, not with anger, but with a calm clarity. Then you'll have to find that space in a way that doesn't erase the work I've done. I'll help you, yes, but not by giving up the home I bled for. My mother swallowed hard, her eyes glistening. Rachel, we didn't know. No, I said gently. You never asked. The ticking clock filled the silence. Sunlight spilled across the room, catching the gold edges of the journal's pages. For a moment, the house itself seemed to stand taller, like it knew it was finally being seen for what it was, the embodiment of every quiet night, every leap of faith, every page of my own story. I set the journal gently on the coffee table, the leather creaking like a whisper of Grandma Eloise's courage. My parents sat stiffly on the couch, hands folded in uneasy silence. Claire perched on the edge of the armchair, her shoulders hunched as though bracing for a storm. I'm willing to help, I began, my tone measured, but only if we do this differently than we've done anything before. My father's brows lifted. Differently? Yes. I drew in a steady breath. No more unspoken expectations. No more me cleaning up after choices I didn't make. If Claire needs support, it can't come at the cost of my home or my boundaries. Claire's eyes flashed, then dimmed, the fight slipping from her posture. What does that mean? It means, I said, leaning forward, you'll need to stand on your own feet. I'll help you find a short-term rental. I'll even cover the first month's rent while you look for work, but you'll create a plan. A real plan. Counseling, too, if you're open to it. Divorce isn't just paperwork. It's rebuilding a life. Her lips parted, a protest trembling there, but no words came. I turned to my parents. And for you. My voice softened, though the steel remained. If we're to have a relationship that's healthy, we start fresh. You ask before assuming. You respect what I've built. And you finally see me not as the younger daughter to be managed, but as the woman who built this life. My mother's eyes welled, a sheen of tears catching the light. My father shifted, the rigid line of his jaw easing for the first time. This isn't punishment, I added quickly. It's about healing the pattern we've all lived in. You gave Claire every break, and maybe you thought I was stronger, that I'd be fine. But I needed you, too. And you need to see that. Silence hung heavy, then my mother reached across the table, her hand trembling as it brushed mine. We did take you for granted, she whispered. I'm sorry, Rachel. My chest tightened, an ache of both pain and relief. Claire drew a long breath. If you'll help me with that first month, she said slowly, I'll figure out the rest. I don't want to repeat old mistakes. A small, wry smile tugged at my lips. That's all I'm asking. The tension in the room softened, like a cord slowly uncoiling. I picked up the journal again and traced the worn spine. These are the terms, I said quietly. Boundaries, respect, and each of us doing the hard work to grow. That's how we move forward. For the first time that afternoon, no one argued. Weeks later, a late, autumn breeze swept amber leaves across the porch as I settled into the porch swing with a steaming mug of chamomile tea. The house was quiet except for the gentle creak of the chains and the faint whistle of wind through the trees. Claire's text had arrived earlier that morning. Got the job. Signing the lease tomorrow. Thank you for believing I could do this. I'd stared at the words until they blurred, a warmth spreading through me that had nothing to do with the tea. A week after our confrontation, my parents began calling more often, not to pry, but to share small slices of their day. Dad describing the new bird feeder he'd built, Mom laughing about a recipe gone wrong. The conversations were awkward at first, tentative as new shoots of spring, but they carried a gentleness I'd never known in our family. Inside, the journal rested on the coffee table, a few new pages filled since that afternoon. Tonight, I'd add another. Claire's first real step on her own, my parents' quiet apology, the simple truth that we were learning, finally, to see one another as equals. I ran my thumb across the journal's worn spine, breathing in the faint scent of cedar that still lingered. Grandma Eloise had passed the winter before, but her voice lived inside every page, steady, unyielding, and warm. Write your own story, Rachel, she had told me that night. I whispered it now into the cooling dusk, a promise renewed. I am, Grandma. I am. The sky deepened to indigo, the first stars winking into view. From the street came the soft rustle of leaves, a sound like distant applause. I sipped my tea and let the silence wrap around me, not as emptiness, but as affirmation. I had built this life with my own hands and my own will. I had faced the past without letting it define me. And now, for the first time, my family was beginning to walk beside me, not behind, not ahead, but beside. I closed the journal gently and rested it on my lap. My house, I said under my breath, a quiet smile lifting my face, my story. The words settled into the evening air like a final line in a poem, steady, unshakable, and wholly mine.